Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and have had a great week. So in tonight's update, we're going to be talking about the tropics just a little bit, and then we're going to talk about our pattern change that will affect quite a bit of the country this weekend into next week as well. And so temperatures will probably be below average for a good chunk of the country next week. So we'll talk about that in the second half of the video, but for the first half, we'll focus on the tropics. So let's go ahead and get started with the update for tonight. Starting off here with post-tropical cyclone Aaron. And so Aaron became a post-tropical cyclone with the latest update, I believe, yes, just of about an hour ago. And so what does a post-tropical cyclone mean? So when a tropical cyclone loses its tropical characteristics and becomes more of an upper level low in a sense, it is called a post-tropical cyclone because it no longer has the characteristics of a tropical cyclone that can strengthen over warm water, and the water it's over right now is well below the criteria for tropical development, and that's also kind of why it's now a post-tropical cyclone. But still, winds are going to be still around the low pressure and is going to impact still portions of Southeast Canada, specifically into Newfoundland. And so I believe we'll still get some impacts into Newfoundland, maybe even into tomorrow. Mostly the wind from that, but not really any rain. And so we'll look at some of the wind impacts in just a little bit. Just give you all a quick update on that for Newfoundland. But that is the latest on post-tropical cyclone Aaron. And there is the current cone. It has it going well up into the North Atlantic here, and then kind of getting merged into upper level flow and maybe heading kind of towards Europe a little bit there. But by then, it will be a much weaker storm system. So if we take a look down here, further down south into the Atlantic. And so we have two areas to watch. Invest 90L, which has a 90% chance of developing within the next 7 days and an 80% chance within the next 2 days. And so we'll look at this on the models and see what they have to show. But this is the area we may need to watch over the next couple of days for development. So that's the latest on Invest 90L. We also have Invest 99L, which has a 30% chance to develop in the next 2 days and a 40% chance within the next 7 days. So this area was once a tropical wave, or still is a tropical wave, that came off the coast of the west coast of Africa. And so it has kind of done its own thing and just continued to drift westward and not really strengthened, I would say, but has kind of just maintained its strength as a kind of just area of thunderstorms. And so we still need to watch this, even though it kind of has a lower chance to develop into anything. I think that we still maybe need to watch it as it gets further towards the Lesser Antilles, and we'll look at the models for it in just a moment. But it has kind of been weaker looking on satellite over the past really day. And then a few days ago, it looked quite healthy, but still, I think it's a good idea to watch this just because it is getting closer to some of these areas, and we'll look at the models on that in just a moment here. So still, post-tropical cyclone Aaron is impacting Nova Scotia, and some of these areas could see 20, even 30 mile per hour wind gusts. And then as we get into tomorrow on Saturday, especially late tomorrow morning into tomorrow afternoon and evening into Newfoundland, these areas could see 40. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see a 50 mile per hour wind gust in some of these areas into southeastern Newfoundland. And even across other areas of Newfoundland, 20 and 30 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. But the winds from Aaron should begin to slack off at least by late tomorrow night or early Sunday morning for those areas. Area right here north of the Leeward Islands, that is our invest right there. I know it does not look like much, but that is the area that has the highest chance of developing in anything. So we continue this forward. It gets a low pressure developed on that. The latest run does. And then it kind of gets close to Bermuda, but starts to weaken a little bit maybe. And then sort of just merges with some troughing that is over the eastern U.S. and kind of goes out to sea. We look at the European weather model as well, the 12Z run here. shows a pretty similar setup. Does not get it quite strong, and actually does not really impact Bermuda, but gets it on out there and slings it on out to sea. We look at the European AI model as well. There's our area, gets that going and strengthens it just a little bit more, maybe a tropical depression. If it is a tropical storm by this point, it'll be a very weak tropical storm, potentially by Saturday, Sunday, get it going into Monday, and finally just once again goes out to sea there. So that's the latest on those models for that area. Now let's look at our area. We'll go back. We'll stay on the European AI model actually. So we'll look down here, and really the only way we can see this is on our 500 millibar vorticity. So keep your eye here well east of the Lesser Antilles. So you see this small area here. I believe that's our area actually. We get this kind of going further. Let me go back to the tropical Atlantic so we can see this a little better. So here's our area right here. So it's so weak on some of these models that you can barely even see it. So on the European AI model, it wants to get our energy towards the Lesser Antilles, and then it kind of gets picked up, and then the energy is almost split there, and you still have a little energy here getting into next week, potentially early next week, going to the Western Atlantic here. There is that energy into kind of getting in the Caribbean, but it never develops it into anything. We look at the GFS weather model as well, get that going here, and there's our energy right there near the Lesser Antilles. Get that going even further. Tries to show just a little bit of energy, maybe trying to get its act together, but it never really does. And then you just continue on that run, and you just have some energy movement throughout the Caribbean there on the latest GFS. We take a look at the European weather model as well. There's our energy on the European, gets that going, gets into Wednesday and Thursday next week. Still have that energy hanging around there, but once again does not get it going into anything either. So lastly, let's look at the GEFS and European ensembles to see what they have to show as well. This is the latest 18Z run, and you have a very, very small signal there early next week near the Lesser Antilles on the GEFS ensemble. What about the EPS ensemble? Once again, a very weak signal. So although we still need to watch this, the chance for this developing in the near future is sort of low. But I just think we still need to watch it as it gets maybe into the Caribbean, if it does, and see how these storms may play out. If it continues to stay healthy like it is right now and gets further into these areas, then we might be dealing with a different situation. But if it continues to weaken over the next few days before it gets into this area, I don't think we'll have anything to worry about. But it's still worth watching, and that's pretty much the latest on that area. So now switching to the pattern change portion of the video, and so we'll be looking at the Climate Prediction Center, the latest outlooks here. So for the next 6 to 10 days, the Climate Prediction Center wants to show the area that has the highest chance to receive below average or get below average temperatures into portions of the southeast, into the mid-south, and even central U.S. And then just almost the entire eastern U.S. looks to be below average for that time frame. But the northwestern and western U.S., west coast, those areas seem to be a little bit above average for temperatures for the next 6 to 10 days. We go to the 8 to 14 day outlook here, and so they have a large area across the eastern, central, and even western U.S. for the next 8 to 14 days, with the areas receiving above average temperatures really being in the northern sections of the U.S. and the southern sections of the U.S. and portions of the west coast. So that is the latest update on our temperature outlooks. So what does this pattern change look like on the weather models here? So this is the latest 18Z GFS weather model. It's still loading a little bit here, but we'll just look at the precipitation at the moment. But continued rain chances in the southeast looks to be the general forecast for this weekend, especially along the east coast. as well. And then even into the central and western U.S., rain seems to be the story there as we get into this weekend, even into early next week. But it's hard to see here, but we have kind of you can see this almost like a shield of rain coming down here across some of these areas. And so the cold air, or cooler air, I should say, not cold air, but the cooler air is well up here, moving southward from Canada down into the central and eastern U.S. as we get to this weekend and next week. And so that area is pretty much being transported down just southward across these areas. And then even as we get into the middle and latter half of next week, rain still looks to hang around the central U.S. for quite a few areas. And I think the central and portions of the western U.S. might be a little bit above average for the next week or 10 days from now. So that's kind of what our precipitation looks like on the GFS weather model. Now let's look at our temperatures here. What do they show? So let's look at our temperature anomalies. So this shows us the areas that will be below average for the temperatures for this time of year. So we go to tomorrow midday, we have below average temperatures moving into the Midwest, north central U.S., even into the southeast because of rain. But here is our main cold air supply moving southward into Sunday as well. Some of these areas in the Great Lakes states are well below average for this time of year. We go farther into Monday. Still, rain is a factor because of these well below average temperatures, but still, these temperatures are going to be quite pleasant for some of these areas as we get into Tuesday and even into Wednesday next week. And if we look at Wednesday, midday Wednesday, the GFS will show almost the entire eastern U.S. and portions of the central U.S. Below average, except for really the Florida Peninsula and northwestern U.S. for Wednesday. We get into Thursday and Friday. Those below average temperatures hang around for a good bit of time, and it looks like we may not even see a return or warm up return to our normal temperatures, or even a warm up for the eastern U.S. maybe until not this weekend, but next weekend potentially. But the western U.S. unfortunately will probably be above average for the next as we get into next week, and then even into next weekend as well. So not too much relief there, but the main story will be our below average temperatures for quite a bit of the central and eastern U.S. late this weekend into next week as well. We go back further here and let's see what temperatures look like. So we'll go to tomorrow on Saturday, and then you can see our temperatures into the 70s and 60s for quite a bit of the U.S. Go into midday Sunday, 70s, 60s, 80s, and to the 90s into the deep south and southwest. We go into Monday, into Tuesday as well, a large area of 60s, 70s, 80s for quite a bit of the U.S. Go into Wednesday, 70s and 80s across the U.S., with the areas being the highest as far as temperatures go into the deep south, Florida Peninsula, Texas, southwest U.S. Going to Thursday into Friday as well, still below average temperatures hang around for some of these areas here into the Midwest and central U.S., but mainly because of the rain cooling things down quite a bit. So I think the main thing next week is going to be the chance for rain across the central U.S. especially, and below average temperatures here to stay for quite a bit of the eastern and parts of the central U.S. At least into next week, potentially even to next weekend as well. So that's pretty much the latest on our temperatures, and so that'll be really about it for today's forecast and update. I appreciate all of y'all watching, and I hope y'all have a great weekend.